What's your glitch in the Matrix story? Was hungover. Headphones on. Hood up. Crossed the road without looking. Felt a push on my backpack and I fell over from it. Take headphones off. Get helped up by a lady who said that if I didn't trip, I would have gotten hit by the bus that just went past. Did not trip. Definitely felt a push. I used to have a parking spot in a shared garage. The way my spot was, it was way easier to get into if my neighbor wasn't there. If he wasn't, I could swing through his spot and back into mine. If he was there, I had to do a multi-point turn. I come home one day, and my neighbor isn't there. So I do my usual routine, swing wide through his spot, put into reverse, start to back up. As I do, I look in my rear view to see that I'm about to back into my neighbor's car. It wasn't there 2 seconds ago. It is now. I still can't figure it out. The position my car was in is impossible to get to without swinging through his space. There's no other way to get into his space than where I was. So he couldn't have snuck in. His hood was cold. And weirdest of all, you could see my tire tracks under where his car was, as if I had gone through the spot and he had magically appeared. Every time I dropped an eraser in school, that sheet ends up like 7 light years away every single time. My grandpa was one of those jaded, I don't have emotions kind of guys. Even more so after his wife, my grandma, passed away naturally. One Thanksgiving night, he just stood up and started talking to everyone very closely and intimately. Hugging people. Telling them he is proud and loved them. And that grandma was so happy to have a family she does. Just basically acting 180 degrees opposite from his normal self. That night, a burglar broke into his house and shot my grandpa dead when he tried to stop him from stealing a jewelry box from the living room, confirmed by the burglar. As written in the police report. We opened that box up when we were clearing out his house. And it had his and grandma's wedding bands in it. Which creeped all of us out big time because he lost his wedding ring about a decade earlier. I'm not sleeping tonight after recalling this story. This was ducking crazy. I'm at home with the dogs. They're inside the house with me. They're whining at me because they want to go in the backyard, but I'm chilling playing some computer games and damn too lazy to let them out. They leave my bedroom. 2 minutes later I hear a loud as noise. Sounds like they were horsing around and knocked something over. I go towards the source of the sound, but everything looks normal except the dogs are nowhere to be found. I'm looking around everywhere and finally I see them. They are in the backyard. I don't have a doggy door and the door leading to the backyard is always locked. Now you're probably thinking there's a chance it wasn't locked and they were able to get outside, but even if that was true, the weirdest ducking thing is that after they got out, the door was then shut and locked. There is no way to lock that door from the outside unless you have the key. And the deadbolt was locked. Not the knob. When I was maybe 12. Was outside and saw sunlight glint off a strand of spider web floating through the air. Didn't think much of it. When it reached me, it sliced open my cheek. Maybe 3 inches across but not terribly deep. No trace of it was left behind. Weirded me out quite a bit. When I was around 10 years old, I was inside the house alone and standing in the living room. I looked down the hall and I saw myself standing at the end of the hall. About the time I saw it, the other me walked towards my bedroom and out of my sight. I followed, and when I got to where I'd first saw it, I then saw it walking into my bedroom. I again followed it, and when I got to where it was, I saw it walk into my bedroom closet. I followed and ended up standing in my closet alone. I realized that what I was doing by following it was exactly what it was doing when I saw it. I was retracing its steps. I also realized that it had been looking around with a confused look on its face just as I had. I didn't tell anyone because that sheet sounds crazy. I was in a lecture once and was kinda bored and just looking about. And I saw this guy sitting a couple of rows ahead of me. I remember him having quite a specific look. Quite a large guy with a ponytail and a long chin beard. I saw him sitting a couple of rows ahead of me. Then looked down at the door and saw him coming in through the door. Now either I passed out for a few minutes without realizing, or he moved at inhuman speeds to somehow leave and re-enter the lecture theater. Interestingly enough, the lecture I was in was on vision and optical illusions. So if I'd been paying attention I might have better understood what happened. Edit, I'm pretty sure he wasn't a twin either, because I looked back to where he had been and he wasn't there. On the 11th of March, 2011, my mom was driving me to school. We had moved houses within Tokyo just a year ago. And when I suddenly realized that I didn't know where our family would meet up in case of an earthquake. So I asked. And my mom and I spent the whole drive talking and deciding going to the park near our house. Then at 2:46 PM, the Tohoku earthquake happens. Final period of the day. And our whole grade was hosting a speaker that worked with disaster refugees. When the first tremblings hit, we were discussing what we would pack in emergencies. This whole day freaks me out. From beginning to end. When we had left the house that morning, my sister had left a big crystal vase full of birthday flowers for my mom on the very edge of a table in the foyer. On our way home, we were sure it had been smashed. But to my amazement, it was still there. It looked like it had barely budged a centimeter. It was literally right on the edge and it hadn't fallen over. I was watching The Matrix Reloaded at the cinema and the film felt really confusing for 2 hours, and when it ended I felt they played the wrong edit. Turns out the movie was just ducking sheet. When I was a kid, I lived in a trailer. The bathroom was next to the master bedroom. And one day I was walking out and I looked into the bedroom and saw a shadow on the wall. At first I thought it was my shadow. But then I noticed that its arms were up as if it intended to grab something. And my arms were definitely not up. So I poked my head into the room to see if anybody else was in there. But nobody was. While I was standing in the doorway, the shadow continued to move along the wall. So I ran as fast as I could. I don't know why, but I vividly remember seeing a mouse pointer in the sky as a kid. I must have been around 4 or 5 and me and my family were out shopping. And I was lying down on the back seat. And I remember seeing it in the sky. My dad said it was a shooting star. But I don't remember any of them being overly excited about it. I have a vivid memory of it as mouse pointer. Definitely my brain jumbling up the memory. But who knows? Admin might be right-click deleting me as I type. Not me. But my mom. She said when she was younger, she used to babysit these kids. Stuff used to go missing in the house and they would look everywhere for it. And they always used to find it in the middle of the basement. It would always be covered in dust as if it had been gone for years. But they found it after 30 minutes of searching. Used to work the cash register in this liquor store in Brooklyn. This 2 elderly ladies come in and as soon as I see them I immediately think it's the glitch. They were about 70 years old and looked like twin sisters. But the craziest part was the way they moved and the way they were dressed. It's the middle of January so it's obviously cold. They come in both wearing the same clothing. Very bright green coat. Neat black hat. Same black pants and same shoes. They walked right next to each other at all times while being inside and left in the same way after they bought something. Don't remember what it was at this point. This whole time I'm just thinking and freaking out inside of my head thinking about the glitch in the Matrix. Even after they left I was looking at their backs and it was crazy how glitchy they looked. Later my manager told me they are twins that live nearby and he honestly thinks they do that to duck around with people. Mine's not as dramatic as the rest but figure I'll share anyway. Why not? So like 6 or 7 years ago back in high school, I was dating this girl that went to a different school. I ended up going to her prom, because honestly I could have given a shit less about my school's prom. We had a fun time. Did all the sorts of stuff that teenagers do. I dropped her off at her house. We did some hanky panky and I ended up leaving her house at around 3 AM or so. Now she lived about 45 minutes away if traffic was good. I set my mom's TomTom to home and went on my way. I remember it being around 3 AM because she called me to make sure I managed to get back on the highway and didn't get lost. I started my drive home and next thing I know I'm pulling into my driveway. I don't remember the drive home. Just a complete blank. Like I fell asleep but made it home safely. The part that kinda screwed with my head was she called me at 3:05ish. And I pulled into my driveway. Remember 45 minutes away. Around roughly 3:15 am. I don't know how the hell I did it. I know I didn't speed because it wasn't my car I was driving. It was my mom's. And even speeding. In a 2009 Hyundai Elantra. There's no way in hell you're making a 55-mile trip in 10 minutes driving normally. My kids and I were going on a road trip. They were 3 and 5 years old. We asked for a prayer for protection before getting on the road. This is my belief system. I am not shoving it down anyone's throat, so. We got a few miles down the highway and my car wheels started to jerkingly lock up. Almost like a really strong emergency brake was on. It shook the whole car. We all wondered what that was. It stopped and then happened again. I decided to take the next exit because we were about to take a long road trip. I took the exit and the first thing I saw was a mechanic shop. The guy drove my car a few miles and brought it back and said he could not find anything wrong with it. I got back on the interstate and noticed the traffic was worse than before. As I got up the next couple of miles I saw that there were two X4s all over the highway. They had fallen off a truck that had been in front of me before I exited. Posted it at AskReddit in the Matrix 2. It was a lazy Sunday morning. I slept late the previous night and my flatmate got off early, can't for the life of me remember why, so I get up late. Around 11ish. Make an omelette. Eat it while reading the newspaper. Now as I get up, I get this very weird feeling that I saw someone sitting in the exact same spot as I was just a moment ago. You've to visualize it like me just spotting someone out of the corner of my eye. Just as I'm turning. I slow down just a little. And the next thing I remember is getting the lightest nudge on my back. Like a gust of wind hitting me on my back from very small range. And then I saw it. I saw myself. Me taking the plates to the kitchen. Clear as day. Wearing the same clothes. Even limping a little bit from last night's sore leg. This was for about 5 seconds. And then I'm in the kitchen. Where I was headed 5 seconds ago. Weirded me out a little bit. And I don't have any history of hallucination or sleepwalking. No headache afterwards. Was just a little spooked out. A few years ago I was walking down the hallway in my house. At the end of it there's a dog gate that you have to manually unlock and open. So I'm walking and I just blink and suddenly I'm on the other side of the ducking gate still walking into my living room. Like I just teleported. Freaked out for weeks. A long time ago I had a CD stereo in the 90s. It could run on batteries. But took like 80 batteries. And I for some reason didn't have a power cord for it. I had a dream that my dad got me a cord. Shortly after waking up he hands me a power cord. Was walking home one day from a friend's, had my headphones on. I saw a rather angry guy running full tilt towards me with mad dare in his eyes. I looked away for a second and he was gone. There was nowhere he could have gone. Were fences all around. When I was 12, I was in the same school as my brother, but not the same class. It was winter. And the schoolyard had been sprayed with water to create a small ice field where the kids could slide around on and whatnot. So I was in class and someone from my brother's class comes in. He tells me my brother is unconscious. I tell him yeah. Right. And he tells me, no. Really? It turned out my brother had slipped on the ice and onto the back of his head. And had a concussion. He got brought home. And I was left in school. Still kind of confused. Later the same day, my class goes to an ice skating rink. Not 10 minutes after I've got my skates on. I try to play catch with a dog. Arch a branch over my shoulder. And fall backwards. Vision goes black. Concussion. I get brought home as well. And I arrive just as the doctor has left to check on my brother. Since that day, We can both vibrate our eyeballs side to side incredibly fast. And we have no idea why or how. It could be because I was so tired. But this morning I set my alarm for 12:45. I woke up. Went back to bed. Woke up again at 1 o'clock. Closed my eyes and opened them again to check the time and it said 1:18. Freaked out cause I was running late. Checked the time again and it was 1:05. Was driving in the early morning. Car behind me with his headlights on. But it's still dusky enough that I mostly just see headlights in my rear view. We round this big curve between ramps. There is no way off the freeway. Not even a shoulder. For a good 5 miles. As we do I glance into my rear view at headlights guy. He's there. And then all of a sudden his headlights shut off and he's gone. I kept checking for miles. There was no one on the road with me anymore. He couldn't have pulled off. He just vanished. I've posted this other places before. I was in 5th or 6th grade. And every day I would get home at 3 o'clock and watch TV inside until my neighbor got home at 4. He was a few years younger than I and his school let out a little later. But on this day, I looked out of my window across the street to see if he had gotten home yet. What I saw was said neighbor. Wearing a white shirt standing in front of his garage. Standing in front of him was what looked like his grandmother. Scolding him. After a few seconds, they both walked into the garage with my neighbor looking defeated. So I think okay. Let me go over and see if he is able to play. There was no answer at the door. So I figured he was in trouble or something. About 20 minutes later, I see his mother's car pull up. So I go over and ask him about it. He said he was not home all day and had not seen his grandmother all day. He was also wearing a purple shirt. Not the craziest story but defiantly weird. A friend of mine had just got her driver's license and we were so excited that we could go places. We were driving around having fun. And by fun I mean actual fun. No drugs or alcohol of any sort was involved. We drove out of the city and turned left off a highway, heading south. We drove around back roads well away from the highway playing some left-right flip a coin game. We decide that we've explored enough and head back to the highway. We get there and realize the city is to the left. We were on the north side of the highway. We had somehow crossed 4 lanes of busy road without knowing it. No we didn't. We both totally freaked out. There is no way we crossed the highway. Yet somehow we were across it. At the time we blamed aliens. There was this creepy little room at the back of the school stage. No light. Small. And it locked from the outside. It gave us the heebie-jeebies. We were joking about backstage and locked one of our friends in. He flipped his sheet. Started hammering on the door. We were all laughing like the bunch of assholes we were back there. Then his screams start mingling with the hammering and shaking of the door. We stop laughing and we're all staring at the door. Then suddenly all noise stops. We're all silent now. Then we start calling his name. No reply. Some of the bolder members of our group open the door. And go in. He's not in there. We don't believe them at first. But it's a tiny room and he's not there. Then we start screaming his name and searching nearby. We spot him through one of the windows coming towards the building. We can't believe it. We all run to him. He says we let him out and we just stared right through him. We were crowding the door to the room that the dark room was in. No way he passed by us. Still have no idea what happened that day.